Hypixel is the largest server on Minecraft with over 20,000 players at any one given time. Hypixel has been around for just under a decade, consistently developing new and fun mini-games to further engage their community into the server. Modding in Hypixel has previously been heavily associated with the use of cheats and hacks in their minigames. This changed, however, when in 2019 Hypixel released their insanely popular take on the hit minigame Skyblock. With the launch of this open-world MMO game, the use of legitimate, non-bannable mods became commonplace within the community. Mods, such as Skyblock add-ons, Skyblock extras, Skytills, and not enough updates, became incredibly popular within Skyblock, whilst other external mods in other Hypixel minigames, like Bed Wars overlays, became increasingly frequent. Most of, if not all of these mods, utilize the Hypixel API for many of their features. On Wednesday, the 8th of February 2023, Hypixel admin Connor Limford made an announcement that they will be implementing heavy changes to the public API system. For almost 4 years, Skyblock mod creators were allowed substantial flexibility in regards to the use of the Hypixel public API. This allowed for creative freedom and led to unique and interesting features. The current API system works by allowing each player to request a unique API key, which can then be inputted into each individual mod, which will then respectively use that key to request information from the API. These keys have a rate limit of about 60 requests per minute to reduce the stress on Hypixel servers. The forum post goes on to explain that the API system was causing incredible stress on their servers, with it being the highest scale service on the network. In an attempt to prevent abuse and quell the scale of the API system, the admin team decided that changes were required. Quoting the post, "One big pitfall of the public API is the ease that players can create API keys. This leads to abuse that can be intentional or accidental due to the way some client modifications work." The post goes on to further talk about mods using a botnet to bypass the API request limit, causing excessive lag on the API system. The post continues by saying they are looking to move towards a system used by most other companies, requiring developers to create an application via a developer dashboard and apply for increases in limits as needed. The transition away from individualized API keys to single API keys for all requests from the mod added an extra burden to mod developers, requiring them to handle all the caching that results from the API requests. Whilst only being mentioned once in the forum post, this single clause quite possibly will have the biggest impact within the modding community. To help understand caching, I'll give you an example. Let's say someone requests a user's stats from the API. The server will then get the stats and store them for a set amount of time. If the same stats are then requested again within the set time period, instead of requesting those stats again, the stats that are cached will be shown. Hypixel is shifting the onus of loading and storing this data onto the mod creators, which requires a dedicated server to run the code on. While this can be cheap for smaller mods, the bigger mods need higher end servers coming at a very large cost and even multiple servers linked together in order to be able to process the large amount of requests. As pretty much all of the mods for Hypixel Skyblock are free, this change costs the mod developers and owners money personally. Not only does this affect the existing developers of Hypixel mods, but it also limits what potential new mod creators and coders can do when starting out modding. New mod creators would have to pay out of pocket to set up a mod that utilizes the API. This may discourage new coders and developers from entering the Hypixel modding field. So what's stopping mod creators from charging users for features that access the API? The Hypixel API rules clearly state you may not use the API for commercial use. Any features that use the API must be available to all users. Alternatively, you may be wondering what's stopping mod creators from charging for the whole mod. The Minecraft EULA clearly states any mods you create for the game, you can do whatever you want with them as long as you don't sell them for money, try to make money from them. This severely limits the options that mod developers have in order to fund the creation of hosting a dedicated server for their mods. After discussing with some developers of major mods, they have expressed interest in potentially adding cosmetics, such as capes and outfits, to sell in order to get the money required. Another potential flaw surrounding the implementation of these API changes was highlighted by forum user ODevil, who stated, What stops malicious users from decompiling the mod and abusing the developer's single backend key? This security flaw means that not only will developers have to host a server in order to deal with both the caching and running of the code, but it also requires a server to host the API key on so that it's not stored on the user's computer locally and therefore cannot be obtained in any way. Moving forward, it seems that Hypixel is 100% implementing the proposed changes, despite the obvious flaws within the plan. I personally believe that the regulation of the usage of the Hypixel API is a good thing. However, the discouragement of new mod developers and overhead costs make it hard to see any viable future for new mod creators. In anticipation of the announced changes coming into effect, some mods and websites have already begun switching over to the one-key system with the support of Hypixel. At the end of the day, the server will continue to thrive and survive, and the talented mod devs will continue to adapt to the ever-changing environment. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, make sure to subscribe and leave me a comment on what you want to see next.